Welcome to another solo show. This one is about finding time. Primarily it's finding time to do things, finding time to practice a musical instrument, etc. Now this is one of the issues that you could imagine as a guitar teacher. You're always wrestling with pupils. Particularly kids, because obviously there's a lot of pressure on their time, which, to be quite frank, I can never remember when I was at school. I must have done some work, but I can't remember never being short of time to play. But it certainly is a problem. Now, so I just thought this acts as a good metaphor for many other things actually about finding time, because obviously we've got plenty of time. It's just about the allocation of time for things, and something happened a couple of weeks ago which I thought was interesting, and it sort of sparked off the idea for this solo show anyway. Now, when I'm interviewing people, obviously they've all been able to focus on their core skill. Otherwise I wouldn't be talking to them, because they've obviously become very good at what they do. But I think what happens often is that in the society that we're in, we're overloaded with the things that we're assumed that we have to do. And if we go back, not that far really, I don't think there was that sort of pressure. And certainly if we go back even further to like my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation, there was less pressure on time. And if you go right back in time, then there was a lot of time to do things, which is sort of the opposite of what you often hear, that primitive people had to survive and all this sort of business. They had a lot of spare time. I think it's completely the opposite of what we think. I think we've been sold a little bit of a lie, basically. I remember all the stuff that when I was growing up about the fact that there'll be so much spare time in the future because of machines and blah 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 blah. There's a load of rubbish. People are working harder now than they ever did. So we need to sort of get a little bit of our autonomy back. I think this is an important point. I might say a few things that might ruffle a few feathers here, but we are being led by the nose in a lot of things. Scaremongering and all the rest of it. Okay, and obviously the COVID thing is a good example of that. I'm not saying that people haven't been dying and all the rest of it, but I think really we've had a period of time in the last, 70 years or so, where we haven't really been faced with a massive amount of problems. And we've sort of falsely been led to believe that that we've fixed stuff and that those problems are never going to come back again. Well, sorry, they have. And it's not like we've entered a new phase. This is the old phase. This is what life is normally like. We just had a blip that was a bit different. So we've got to just face up to the fact that, you know, our ancestors dealt with all this in the past. And we need to live our lives accordingly. But we have got to this sort of point where, you know, they talk about the nanny state. It's not so much the nanny state, it's just that we are being led by people who want to sell us something all the time. And that's part of what the problem is. And that's also been fed into how the employment system works. Now when you work for somebody, it's almost 24/7, particularly if you work from home. It's very difficult to turn off the computer and turn off the text messages and emails. But we need to do that. It's very important. And with the kids, they're being led by the nose by computer games and all sorts of things. So, how do you get that time back? Well, you've got to be very proactive about what goes on in your mind. You've got to be able to set your own agendas, set your own boundaries. And that is quite difficult. So let's look at that. One of the big problems that we've got is nutrition. Now, that's a bit of a strange statement, I suppose. But we have got a lot of people that are obese in this country, and just generally in the West, really, and obviously America just leads the field. And a lot of it is to do with the fact that we're eating a lot of rubbish, which has very little nutritional value. And there is evidence to point to the fact that your thinking is often directed by the type of bacteria that you have, particularly in your gut. I know this sounds completely woo-woo, but this is pretty much where nutritional medicine and stuff is going. So you are being controlled by basically what your bacteria is making you think. So the easiest way of understanding this is addiction. Addiction to alcohol, addiction to sugar, and the fact that you seem to have no control over those things. So the best way of dealing with this that I have found, so personal experience here, not a doctor, blah, 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 and all the caveats that go with that, is to fast. Don't eat for a day or two. Get into the habit of not eating. And it's difficult at first. Yup. It makes you feel like you're going to die. Yup. But in actual fact, that's just not you dying. That's certain bacterial growths that need to be fed, and they die off very quickly. Once you get into that, not only do you lose weight, but your thinking becomes clearer, which sort of points to the fact that your thinking is being affected by what you're eating. If you drink too much alcohol, cut back, and maybe, again, go dry for a period of time. Clear up your thinking in that way as well. So what about the other things? Computer games, go on a fast. Too much binge watching TV, go on a fast. Lots of things, go on a fast. If you're working too much, go on a fast. And of course, this will provide you with time. Because if you're spending too much time doing something, go on a fast. And then you can start directing that time in more profitable ways. So what do you do? So obviously one of the things is make a list. Prioritise the list and just go through the stuff and feel good when you cross it off your list. With things like practicing, if we go back to my sort of core interest, which is, playing a musical instrument, make your practice feel good. So you can build it into into an existing habit pattern. So, for instance, if you, I get kids to do this. I say to them, when you clean your teeth, before you clean your teeth, practice the guitar, 5 minutes. Or have a guitar in a room that every time you walk in the room, it's in the way, you've got to pick it up and play it. Build it into a habit. Now, that's the first port of call. Obviously leaving a musical instrument out of a case means that when you see it and the music's near, you can pick it up and play it. Okay. Don't have it that it becomes something that's a chore. It should be something that you just sort of do. Now, one of the thing that I mentioned earlier, I said something happened a week or so ago, which made me think about this. I was teaching somebody who obviously gets a lot of practice time in. And this lad's a very bright lad, doesn't have any problems with school, pretty much top of his year. But he also finds time to learn a new piece of music of his choosing every week, sometimes 2 pieces. And they're complex guitar parts, and he just eats them up. So I told him a story about Robin Ford, which I heard from Richard Bandler. So Richard Bandler's one of the co-founders of the NLP movement. Now, Bandler lived in California and was friends with people like Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead, and many other really good musicians. And Bandler met Robin Ford when he was, 12 or 13. He could have even been younger than that, I don't know. But he said there was this kid and he was brilliant, absolutely amazing. And he said to him, "What do you feel when you play the guitar?" And Robin Ford said, "The world seems to be a better place." So he mentioned this in an NLP training session that I was at. And it really sort of impacted me, because I thought, well, that's definitely the sort of thing that people who become really good players, they'd rather be playing the instrument than not. And I mentioned it to this lad that I was teaching. So I said, a lot of kids are distracted by stuff, Xbox, blah, 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 computer games, whatever. And he said, and I said that, that seems to be the biggest problem. And he turned around to me and said, "Well, I could say that the guitar is my distraction." And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So you have to make the thing that you need to do your distraction. Okay? It's the thing that you'd rather do than not. Now, even if that means it's just a case of doing it for a few moments because it's something that you would normally find intolerable, like, for instance, bookkeeping, accountancy. If you work for yourself, then you know exactly what I mean. But if you just did that as a distraction, just for a few moments, you just did that before something else that you did, that would help. Now, I am definitely somebody who dips in and out of stuff. I'm that sort of, more of a butterfly type character. So I would pick up the guitar and play for a bit and then put it down. I'd play a bit of this piece and a bit of that piece and so on. And I've always been like that. And it's worked for me. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me. But if it's something that you find that it's difficult to focus for a long period of time, then that might be a good way of doing it. So finding time then, first of all, we need to fast. Okay? That's the first thing. Clear out the clutter. And then that will create a bit of time. And then the thing that you want to do, make it your distraction. Make it the thing that you do in preference to other things. In whatever psychological trickery that you can find that will do that. And feel good about what you're doing. And then make it a habit. So that's my little resume of how to find time and to achieve things. So if you want to support the podcast, visit Patreon and then search Vic Highland. There'll be details in the show notes. Lots of interesting things coming up. Blues Camp is running this year. Yippee! So if you want to come and play guitar, play drums, play bass, sing, and learn all the tricks of how to be a great rock star, you can find the Blues Camp link in the show notes. As usual, got lots of great people lined up. And in the telling of their stories, you will learn to find your own story. So with that, until I see you next time, all the best.